Welcome to Cord Cutting This Week, number 12. We've made it now to number 12, and we're second week in the brand new office. A couple quick updates on Cord Cutters news. We are in the new office, pretty much set up. The review lab is all done. Got the TV mount on the wall, so look for a lot more video content coming. I got a backlog of review products I have to catch up on. And we want to get into some more how-to tips, tricks, videos to help you get more of your cord cutting experience, to show you how to get cord cutting done easier, I guess is one of our goals here. So look for that going forward. We have an announcement next week. I'll tease that for now. Check out next week. Keep an eye on the site. I'll have a big announcement. But hey, we're here to talk about some of the news from the past week. The ones that I think are most influential, not just for the here and now in the world of cord cutting, but going forward. So we're going to look into the world of cord cutting starting today, and some of my favorite stories from the past week. Number one, YouTube TV pulls support from Roku for casting. Very briefly, YouTube TV, actually not briefly, for about a week, YouTube TV supported the ability to cast on Android tablets and phones to Roku devices. It worked just like casting a regular YouTube video. If you had the YouTube channel installed, you'd see the little icon in the top right hand corner of your YouTube TV video, and you could cast it to your TV. It worked well, no issues. Even had graphics on the app of a Roku remote talking about how to use it and design it. They pulled that. Google is notorious for just throwing out betas for everybody to see and test out and find, and it seems like that's what Google did here. They threw it out there, let people play with it, test with it, got a little bit too much attention, or they got all the data they wanted and they pull it. That's how Google often operates from time to time. Seems like that's what they did here again. The good news is it worked great. Bad news, it was only casting, but Google has said a dedicated Roku channel and an Apple TV app are on the way, so keep an eye on that. We do have big things to come. From the looks of that beta, I have a full video, I'll link to it down in the show notes, this story. I have a full video showing how it works and it running live. It worked great, so they must be very close to having it going live. Next up is, speaking of Roku news, we have DIRECTV NOW Beta finally comes to the Roku. So DIRECTV Now has been running beta of a new app and DVR. They're taking the app side of that beta, bring it to Roku. So you get the new user interface, all the new features. You don't get access to your DVR right now. You can set up recordings in this beta on Roku, but you cannot view them. They say that is coming, but for now, it's just not part of it. Overall, it looks just like all the other betas out there from the Fire TV and the Apple TV. It looks like they're having a consistent user experience across all devices. I have photos of it. I'll put a few right here, but I'll also link to them down below for a full breakdown if you want to see what it looks like. This is great. Hopefully this means we're one step closer to the DIRECTV Now Beta, DVR, and app coming out to everybody. Not sure that's going to happen in January now. I know that was my prediction at the back at the end of December, that in January we would see at least an official announcement of it. But since then, DIRECTV Now has suffered a lot of buffering. They've suffered several outages since then. And according to our reports, they are scrambling to just find stability fixes. So for now, I would say February, March is more likely as they struggle to address the beta. The good news though is they're now testing on Roku, so hopefully Roku is not as far away as we feared. I do though expect it to first come out on like Apple TV, Fire TV, Android, iOS before it hits Roku, just because they're so far behind in beta testing. So keep an eye on that. As live TV battles heat up, having your apps and services on as many devices as possible is important. Roku dominates over 50% of the US market streaming players, and according to our readers, our surveys, over 70% of our readers use a Roku on their daily cord cutting activities. So keep an eye on that. These are two big stories that will determine who are going to dominate the world of live TV streaming. Speaking of cord cutting in the future, internet is a big part of it, bringing real competition to the world of home internet, which is something we haven't really had. Most cord cutters are lucky to have 2, maybe 3 internet providers in their area. Well, the FCC is doing something great to help expand that. Recently, the FCC committee approved what they call a one-touch rule, which basically says if a provider like Google Fiber does not have any changes to the current equipment on there, doesn't move anything, doesn't splice into it, that they basically can use the existing poles. It basically allows within 29 days for Google Fiber or other ISPs who want to run fiber to different poles to do so. This will dramatically speed up the rollout of new internet service providers and help 5G. I'll get to that in a minute. Because one of the biggest holdups is current renters of poles. So there's a pole owner, and then they lease the space, and you used to have to get permission from the pole owner, then you just have to go to the other ISPs, the other phone companies, etc., and get permission to run your cables on those lines also. Well, the FCC just said, hey, if you're not moving anything, you're not changing anything, and the pole provider says it's good, basically you can go ahead and do it. Oversimplification, I got full details of it down below in the show notes, the full story there, but Google said that with their fiber, when they rolled out in Tennessee, after 4 months, they needed access to 4,000 poles. They were only able to get access to 33 poles because of current providers who use the poles basically dragging out the process, making it very difficult for Google to get access to be able to expand their network. It also forces cities to grant approval, basically, if they don't have a reasonable objection, and it puts a timestamp on that, how long they can wait before giving a reply to somebody like Google Fiber before it's deemed automatically approved. And this is meant to help speed up the rollout and prevent cities from trying to protect monopolies or the so-called sweetheart deals that are out there right now. So keep an eye on this. It's very important. I saw a lot of comments on this story. Well, who cares? Fiber's dead. 5G is the future. Yes, but 5G still needs fiber. A few things. Yes, existing cell phone towers do have fiber to them, the provider. Downside is 5G doesn't cover the same range that current cell phone towers do, so you're going to need more cell phone towers out there. These ones are a lot smaller. They're looking at, for instance, Verizon's testing them and putting them in light poles. So the street lights around your neighborhood could have 5G transmitting towers inside of them, for example. The other thing is more companies are getting into it. Charter, which we'll talk about in a moment, Google, Dish, etc., are rolling out 5G. They need to run their own wires to their own towers. Even if they use the same tower that Verizon is using, Google will need their own fiber connection to handle the load and so forth. So this will help speed up the rollout of 5G by making it easier to set up your towers by running fiber to that tower. So keep an eye on that. That's important. Competition is what needs to come to home internet. Looks like we're slowly getting it. It will be a while, be 2 or 3 years before most Americans see it, but this rollout is going to come really quick. Speaking of the rollout of cord cutting and the growth of cord cutting, we got to look at the fourth quarter 2017 numbers of subscriber losses for traditional pay TV, satellite, and cable. According to the reports that came out this week, about 9, or a little over, I should say, 9,000 Americans every single day canceled a traditional pay TV service and did not replace it. This is a huge jump from how many people were canceling cable in the end of 2016, and I think this is only going to keep growing. Really, we're at the point where it's not what if, but when cord cutting will become bigger than traditional pay TV. It's just the way things are going. That cord cutting is the future, and it's where people are going. Ways to go. Anywhere, depending on who you talk to, anywhere from 80 to 90 million traditional pay TV customers currently, depending on who you talk to, again, between 20 and 25 million cord cutters out there, cord nevers. It's kind of a tough number, especially with the cord nevers. How do you track that? You can look at things like new home starts versus how many people start on cable. It's complicated, but that's the range is we're looking at right now. With 9,000 people and growing every single day canceling cable, we are looking at the reality that cord cutting will be bigger than cable in the foreseeable future. So keep an eye on that. It's becoming easier and easier to become a cord cutter, and the future is cord cutting. So let's dive into our last story of the day. Charter, I talked a little bit about 5G, but Charter is rolling out 5G in 6 markets around the United States to test it out. This is a beta test. They are, their goal, they say, is part of a rural broadband push. But for now, they're in major markets. I'll explain that in a minute. But they're in Orlando, Florida, Reno, Nevada, Clarksville, Columbus, Ohio, Bakersfield, California, and my hometown, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Sadly, I don't live there, but I'll have to visit and test this out. Charter's testing out in these markets. Why major cities, you may ask? Well, they still need competition. 2, it's a return on investment. These companies are investing millions of dollars in this new technology. They want to put it in a highly populated area where one tower can serve a lot more people. A, it stress tests the service. You want to stress test it. You want to put it where there's a lot of people. 2, it's a lot more people to sign up for the same impact than it is how to do a very rural part of America where only a few people may sign up. It will take a lot longer to get your initial refund on your investment of the millions you poured into this service. But keep in mind, Charter and others are all saying the goal here is to take this service into rural America and use it to bring broadband to Americans who currently don't have the options other than maybe a very slow DSL, satellite internet, etc. Keep an eye on this. Dish is coming up behind them. A whole host of companies are working on 5G. Some of you may not ever have heard of, but 5G is going to bring real competition. When we've seen this already, when Google Fiber, there's a third or fourth option in a major market, the price of cable and DSL comes down. Things like data caps suddenly vanish, and competition is what we need to drive down the price to get rid of data caps. When you have two options, it's much easier for the internet providers not to worry about price, not to worry about things like data caps. When there's 5, 6, 7, 8 options, then it becomes an issue. You've already seen this in wireless cell phone service. You see the rise of the smaller networks like Straight Talk and T-Mobile and Sprint growing really fast, taking on the incumbents of Verizon and AT&T. And that's forced AT&T and Verizon to do things like bring back unlimited data, more favorable pricing, more favorable features, including the ability to tether your phone to your tablet or computer. We need that same thing to happen in the world of home internet, and it slowly is. I saw it running at CES. It's impressive. It is real. It is a real technology that's really working. So check that out and keep a close eye on it. So those are the stories I think that came out this week that will have the greatest impact on cord cutting going forward. Let me know, what do you think? What stories this week do you think have the greatest impact? How long have you been a cord cutter? Leave us a comment. We would love to hear how long you've been a cord cutter. We would greatly appreciate knowing more about what you think is important in the world of cord cutting. So questions, comments, let me know. Make sure to join us every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern for our weekly cord cutting Q&A. And join us every Friday right here for our weekly This Week in Cord Cutting recap show.